Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us. We have a lickety-split 10-minute version of solutions journalism training. This is going to be a quick version of a longer training that we do in many different formats. SJN does training in news organizations. We do it with different organizations or groups at different times. We have cohorts and fellows that we pull together and dig in over months to kind of refine practice and go deeper. So if you are interested in SJN's training services or in refining your practice or that of your organization, please do reach out. On a very basic level, what is what we call SOJO, our nickname for solutions journalism? It is rigorous, evidence-based investigation into what works. It's not puff pieces. It's not kind of light, feel-good reporting. It's not intended to be an antidote to bad things happening in the world. It's actually looking at real solutions and investigating them. For SJN, we talk about solution journalism having 4 pillars. So a real solution journalism story is not just a person or an organization, but it features a response to a problem. And there's evidence, there's proof that something is working or headed in the right direction, things to examine to understand where does the solution fit into maybe an ecosystem of solutions or other options. You discuss the limitations, and that means looking at what do we know, what do we not know yet, and then finally it seeks to provide insights. So it's imperative to distill lessons from solutions so that others in other places that might want to implement them have a bit of a handbook or a guide to move forward. We think of this as importantly part of what journalists just should be doing, but another urgent reason to think about a solutions lens is that we're not doing well with our customers. 42% of people in the US report avoiding the news because it's too negative. And that isn't really because that's the makeup of all the things that happen in the world. It's just that what we know how to do as journalists is focus on problems. And so figuring out how we tell the other half of the story is critical for us to actually fulfill our role for helping people find news that they can use. So is solutions writing advocacy? Well, the short answer is nope. It is not if we don't overclaim or predict the future, if we don't put solutions in the context of other approaches and don't claim one is the right way or the only way. If we make the story about the ideas and the insights rather than a particular organization, program, or policy. This isn't a character study or something that's about charismatic leadership. Include the unknowns and revisit when more is clear. So the context of where in its life history is this solution? Is it early days? Is it a medium term and there should be some kind of evidence, or should this have proven some kind of traction long ago? And how is this relevant to climate coverage? It is crucial. We are starting to see that people are wanting more information about climate. 72% of people in 17 countries are very or somewhat concerned that climate change is either already affecting them or will affect them at some point. And at the same time, the way that we as a news media worldwide are covering climate change is deactivating and demotivating. In the wake of the IPCC report, 79% of the headlines on the most 25 linked to news sites covering that reportedly evoked fear, hopelessness, or overwhelm in the audiences that visited those sites, and only 6% evoked hope. So by only telling half of the story, we are creating the impression that this is completely unsolvable, and we are leading people to be apathetic. So solution stories can be a story of any size. These 2 examples, one is a 1-minute radio spot that looked at law firms that were stepping up to help small businesses navigate COVID-19. And the one on the right is actually a multi-story series from the Cleveland Plain Dealer that was looking at the effects of lead contamination. Now, this was focusing on something that was bad, lead contamination. However, it included solutions. So exposés, investigatory work, should have solutions. And the way that this particular series approached it was pointing out that other cities and states have stepped up, recognizing that cleaning up lead in homes would save millions in health, education, and criminal justice costs down the line. Their smart, low-cost preventative solutions have left little excuse for inaction. So the framework of solutions actually holds public leaders accountable to problem solving and to finding solutions and to being well informed about what's working elsewhere and being on the cutting edge of that. So figuring out how to push that kind of accountability is important. Climate solution story types, we think of it in 4 different buckets. There's probably more than that, but these are our big categories. Mitigation, so that's solutions that are lessening the effects of climate change. Adaptation is replacing what climate change has altered. Resilience, which is methods for coping with climate change. And then systems, which is identifying what are layers or scaffolding of solutions that allow solutions to take place. So the complexity of climate means that we're not only looking at solutions, we're looking at methods for how we come up with solutions. And those are also contributing to some of the resolution. So an example of a mitigation story here is an indigenous practice that is helping prevent wildfires. So older practices and things that come from indigenous culture are being revived as a way to protect forests and prevent that carbon from going back into the air if those should burn, lessen the effects of climate change. This is a story about adaptation. So in Kenya, trying to rebuild forest cover and getting to 10% of what was originally there. So this is some significant progress that's happened. Resilience, this is a story covering the Arctic and looking at the methane that's being released. Can it be harnessed and used for energy? So are there some potential ways that we can innovate around some of the effects that are happening now and provide something positive? And then an example of systems. So this story is about global innovation competitions. And as a method, are those a useful way of surfacing potential solutions for climate change that could scale, that need investment, that have not yet gained attention or been seen by policymakers or those who could invest? At the end of the day, solutions journalism is just good journalism. And if we're rigorously investigating solutions, we're reframing problems that are seen as intractable as actually surmountable, which is the truth. So how do you get started? Here's a few slides that are a bit of the nitty-gritty in coaching that we give to individuals and to organizations. There's a lot more depth that's on some of our kits on the website, but as a beginning point, defining the issue as precisely as possible, and then breaking it into its component pieces and seeing where there are solutions that are working on different parts. So topics are complex, there's many layers to them. Getting to a granular enough level where you're looking at problems that would have specific solutions is necessary. You can't boil the ocean or start with something that is so broad that you're looking at solutions that are very different or hard to compare. Some questions to ask: what are myriad solutions to this problem? Who's doing it better? How does the response work? Is it being tried elsewhere? What are the barriers to replication? What does the research say? What do critics say? And for whom is the response working or not working? And importantly, that last question absolutely needs to be asked of the communities that supposedly a solution is going to benefit. There's lots of situations where the folks who are supposed to be benefiting aren't actually benefiting because the solution didn't come from them. This is a planning book that we use for story planning and work with publications around. Just a simple way to start to frame what are the different elements of your story and research. So problem, again, this can be a piece or a small slice. Ideally, it's granular enough, again, that you can have solutions you can compare. And then which response do you want to examine? Pick one to focus on. We highly, highly encourage this next piece, evidence, that you gather it before you get too far into the research. It's quite common to get excited about solutions or ideas, dig into a lot of the reporting, and then 2/3 of the way through, or when you've done a lot of work, realize there isn't a lot of research there to show that the solution's working. So work on the evidence up front. You'll be much happier and have fewer bits falling onto the editing floor. We always like for you to find the how done it. So what was done and how. The specifics and the detail there is what makes this story relevant to others who want to replicate this solution. You want to look at limitations and caveats. What are the doubts? What are things that you know about that are limits for this particular solution? What does the timeline look like for this to be successful or to be challenged? And then finally, insights, lessons the response might provide to others. And thinking about this as an analytic tool, right? So that looking at a solution is not just talking about something and creating a positive narrative. It's looking at what are the ways in which it really works and how can that be replicated? Another place to start is on Solutions Journalism website. We have something called the Solutions Story Tracker. It's a database of stories that we've vetted and chosen as great examples of solutions journalism. There's over 13,000 stories that are in this database from all over the world on virtually every topic. So if you want to see, is someone else doing the kind of solution that you're writing about locally in your community, check it out here and see if there are better versions or other places you can find innovators who are doing maybe something different that's even better. Thank you so much for joining us today, and join our climate network and become part of this conversation with other reporters about reporting through a solutions lens on the climate. Thank you so much.